great was this documentary, right? Round of applause to the director here. I'm going to do some quick introductions and we'll get into the conversation. All right. Right here is Alex. So sorry, I had my notes a little different. Okay, Alex, say hello to everyone. Tell them a little bit about what you do.
Hey everybody, Alex Sanfilipo. I am the founder of podmatch.com, which is a service that connects podcast hosts and guests for interviews. So some of these podcasts you saw, maybe they have guests on, and we would be a service that would match them together. Kind of similar to how a dating app works, but doesn't connect you for dates, just for podcast interviews.
Oh, I'm Shaun. I made it.
Woo, 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 woo.
With many, there's other people who were definitely involved, so it wasn't just me. So there was lots of people who made this movie happen. So
I am Blythe Milligan. I am the host of a podcast called Everything is Logistics, and then I'm also the co-founder of Jax Podcasters United, which is a local community group here in Northeast Florida with over 500 members of audio creators, and we host regular events just like the one we're having here.
Woo!
And I'm Alban, Brooke, the head of marketing at Buzzsprout. We host over 100,000 shows, and we're based here in Jacksonville, Florida. Many of the shows that were featured here are hosted on Buzzsprout here in your local community.
Right. Isn't it so special that they're all here in Jacksonville together for this one evening? Shaun, we're going to start with you. I want to kind of go behind the scenes of the making of this film, because so much of this, that's what you did, right, with Ronald. We saw the behind the scenes of making art. And so there were moments in the 7 years that it made to take this, that funding dried up, you weren't sure if it was going to get finished. What was the driving force behind finishing this film and getting it in front of audiences all across the country, the world, really?
Well, there were definitely times where there was a lack of money, and it was very challenging. After we started shooting in 2018, we did a bulk of the interviews in 2019, and in 2020, as everyone knows, COVID hit and really kind of stopped the momentum of the film at that time. I don't know. I feel like I'm a person that feels like if I started something, I need to finish it. And especially with the sheer amount of amazing people that shared their stories and their lives with me, I felt an obligation to finish it. And at the time, there was anything like this that kind of showcased what podcasting could be. And I also felt like there was a narrative happening in podcasting, that a podcast was a certain thing. And, nothing against Joe Rogan, but there's so much more to the medium. And I felt like it was being underrepresented as an art form. And so I felt like there's something that needed to be made to say, hey, this is not just... And I love Two People Talking. I love People Talking. That's a great podcast. I listen to a lot of them. But audio as a format is not just that. It's something that people can do almost anything with. And I felt like there needed to be something that said, hey, there's something really cool here beyond... podcasting is not a genre. It's a medium. So
say more about that.
Well, it's like a book or a film or a television show. You know, you can have something on TV that's, selling something cheap or something that moves you deeply, and it runs the gamut. And so to say, some people think of podcasting as a certain kind of thing, and I felt like it's so much more than that. There is it's kind of the mixture of a book. When it's audio only. I know that lots of podcasts are video now, and that argument is a discussion we can have at some point. But just like when you're reading a book, there's things that happen inside your head. There's something that you connect with the author. I feel like when you're hearing a voice inside your head, especially what differentiates it from most radio is radio you generally aren't listening to with headphones. And there's something about podcasts where that person that you're listening to is literally inside your head. And I think there's an intimacy to it, and there's something that is so incredible about that experience. And someone like Ronald that took that experience and really ran with it and creates a opportunity to connect with someone on a one-to-one level. Whereas radio, and nothing against radio, I think radio is amazing, but a radio is generally one-to-many. And the thing about podcasting, generally speaking, is you're one-to-one. Even though there may be other people listening, the way the host is generally talking to you is to you directly. And I think there's something very powerful in that.
You mentioned Ronald as a central focus of the film, and he was sort of the character, right, that grounded the film. Tell us why or the story behind wanting to feature Ronald, and tell the larger story of podcasting through an independent podcaster like Ronald.
Well, over the film took about 7 years to make, and over that course of time, we had some other people that were the host or the subject, if you will. I always felt like I wanted to have a host. I wanted to have a hybrid situation where the film was a combination of an audio narrative podcast and a documentary. But I was hoping to ask Avery Trufelman to be the host. But at some point, I had some people that were in the film and then dropped out, and then in the film and dropped out over the course of 7 years. And in 2023, I had someone drop out, and I knew I wanted to have an independent podcaster, and I knew that I wanted to have a person that you could connect with. I didn't want it just to be talking head, sitting around talking about what podcasting was. I wanted something to be dynamic and someone that you were following making a podcast. And in 2023, I was kind of still searching for someone because a couple of people have dropped out. And I put on our website, hey, we're looking for podcasters. And I had a lot of people reach out, but one of those names was Ronald Young Jr., and I had been hearing about him in a few different ways, so I was very excited that he had reached out. And I met up with him at Resonate in 2023, and we connected, and I kind of knew that he was kind of the person. He was in the middle of this upswing, if you will. His podcast had launched earlier that year, had debuted at Tribeca, and had gotten a lot of attention, if you will. And to be able to be in a moment where someone's actually experiencing that upswing, and also with even the awards that you guys all saw, we happened to be there. We didn't know he was going to win anything. We hoped he would. But I mean, I can't tell you how exciting I was. Very excited every time that he won, because like, oh great, it's going to be great for the movie. But also showing the other side of that. Like, here's someone, it's probably at the pinnacle of what most podcasters want to be, like winning awards, getting highlighted by the New York Times, getting highlighted by places like Vulture, and still showing the reality of what it means to have something that people really love, but may not be something you can pay the bills with. And I thought that was important to kind of show in the film, because I think most people who are making something, and you can probably attest to this, if you're making something like this, you shouldn't be making it because you really care about it. And there are so many ways now that, because of companies that exist, like Buzzsprout and Podmatch, that you can find ways to make money if you find an audience. But really, your first instinct should be to make something you care about. And I thought that I was very lucky. I mean, it's all kismet, if you will, that we ran into Ronald and the timing worked out. And it was, I made the movie for 7 years, and the last 2 years were Ronald. And I got to shout out Ellen Horn. She was the story editor. And if it wasn't for Ellen and Ronald, I don't know if this film would have ended up how it is now.
Yeah, Ronald added a lot of heart and realness to the story, right?
I just want to point out, we didn't get to the end credits. If you have a chance to watch the film, you should really watch the credits. There's a final joke by Fred Armisen there at the end. But the film is dedicated to Ronald's mother. Ronald's mother passed away about 2 months after we filmed her. And it's one of the great things that I think is great about making something like a documentary, where it captures a moment, and we were able to capture her. And one of the great things that I might cry is very rarely do you get to hear your parents talk about you to someone else. And the fact that she said she was proud of him and was like happy that what he was doing, and we were able to share that with Ronald. And he has this living document of his mother being proud of him before she passed away, I think is a really cool thing as well.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Let me get myself together. All right.
She's so funny, and she's so great. I mean,
She's
she was
so lovely.
funny.
She's so lovely. Alban, okay, we're going to turn to you. So a little bit of background. You left your career as an attorney to join Buzzsprout back in 2014. Since then, you've helped well over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout is a household name, right? It was actually couldn't believe you guys were local to Jacksonville because it's Buzzsprout, right? And so to have you here is really an honor. But what I want to ask you about is how you've been able to see the industry grow from behind the scenes, in the tech, seeing the data. And so what has the journey been like for you since about last 12 years or so to see the evolution of podcasting as a platform that's hosting shows?
Yeah, 2014 is kind of the end of Act 2 of this documentary. And I got into podcasts pretty early on and was really interested in them, and then had the opportunity to leave law, which I was not enjoying, and go work in software. And back then, you had to tell people, let's download this app to your phone. I'm going to try to get you on some shows, and you had to explain a podcast. And now we're in a position where you talk to people all over the world. They all know what a podcast is. The first event I went to, somebody said, I know I shouldn't start a show. I already missed the boat. I went, what do you mean? He goes, there's already 30,000 podcasts in iTunes. And now we have between 2 and 4 million shows, depending on how you count a podcast. Meteoric rise for the entire medium. And I don't think it's one that we really expected. It was a really it was a beautiful thing for us as a business, but also just as a medium. This is a unique medium because it's audio focused, it's so intimate, and it's a direct connection between the audience and the listeners. And so it's just been beautiful. A lot of the team is here today for all of us to get to be part of this journey.
Thank you for coming. Blythe, I want to turn to the community aspect of this. And you are the co-founder, right, of Jax Podcasters United. Started from scratch. You know, building community is tough. So shout out to you and your husband for making that work. Yeah, there you go. Can you give us an idea of what the local scene is like? What are podcasters here excited about? What are they frustrated about?
I think it's just the two pillars, and the goalposts are always moving, but it's money and marketing. And how do you keep figuring out how to achieve both? I mean, we first started throwing events, I believe, in 2018. And in 2018, we were worried that nobody would even show up to our events. And so when communities started showing up and we started sharing these stories and sort of trading these battles and these wars that each of us are independently fighting, the community became the strong force behind it, because then we could share that or share in the experiences that we're not alone. Because podcasting, I think, at its core is a very lonely job. You're doing everything by yourself. And so being able to see the community come together and share those stories and help each other learn and get there a lot faster has been the inspiration for keeping these events still going. But it's always money and marketing. And I don't know that will ever change.
The two big M's. Can you share maybe what has been working? Because a lot of the film focused on monetization and trying to get some back into the show, make some money back into the show. Do you have any sort of success stories or things that may be working with local folks, with smaller audiences, what they're doing?
I'm glad you asked, because I talked to Badr about this before the event started. And I'm like, who are some of our most successful podcasters in the area? And it's not just necessarily podcasters, but it's people who are making a living from podcasting. And obviously, Alex is a perfect example of that. We have one of our members, Rita, who showed up to an event. She was actually laid off earlier in the day. She was already podcasting. She shows up to the event. She's frankly pissed off that she got fired. And then she ends up getting a job at that event, at one of our events, and then she's parlayed it into her own podcast. She's hosting for Lenovo, which is a major, obviously a computer manufacturer. And so she's parlayed it into several different things. And so I think from the community aspect, I always like to frame it as ROI is different for everyone. And so we have podcasters that are able to interview their favorite athletes. We have podcasters that are able to moderate comic book panels. And so ROI is something that we really, a return on investment, is something that we really want to hammer home, that it looks different for everyone and at different stages of your career. Because what ROI means to you 5 years ago might not be the same thing a year from now. And so I would say Rita's definitely one of them. Another local Wait For It podcast. It's a comic book or comic and pop culture podcast. And then there's also OG Sessions. They just won Best Pod in Jacksonville. Al Pete is another one. He's a legend in the local North Florida area.
Saw him in here. Al, are you still here? Okay. No.
So Al Pete is another one. He has a local network and a local podcast that he's been working on for years. And so, these trusted local voices that keep just pushing through and keep pushing the boundaries, I think are the proudest moments that we're able to see at each of the events.
So Alex, you mentioned, you have made a life in podcasting, right? And so Podmatch was born out of a very specific frustration, he says, a room full of 100 podcasters who all said the same thing. I can't find the right guests. You went from aerospace executives, we have an attorney, we have aerospace, very smart people in podcasting, to founder, to build the solution. Huge move. What made the opportunity to get into the podcast industry so compelling for a aerospace executive?
Well, first off, aerospace executive, I wasn't an astronaut, wasn't a skydiver, wasn't a fighter pilot. So
but still, you were aerospace.
The point is, the job was kind of boring. So for fun, on the side, I was like, man, I want to do something that gets me excited, right? Like that's just like cool to do. And so I started a podcast, and I was just interviewing people that had become very successful. They were doing their own thing, pursuing their passions. And as I listened, I learned what I consider to be the framework for entrepreneurship. Find an area of passion, get into the community, find a problem, offer the solution. And I'm very much so simplifying what many very smart people told me, but I was like, man, I might be able to do that. And I knew that podcasting become my passion. I got into the community, to your point, like I talked to podcasters to find out what they were struggling with. And when I heard that, man, finding the right guests and hosts and bring them together was the pain point, I was like, that's the problem I want to offer a solution to. And so one of my co-founders, also my wife, Letisha, she's in the very back if she wants to wave, maybe? Yeah, she waved. It was me, her, and one other business partner. I was like, let's try to build this out to see if it can actually help solve this pain point that podcasters are having. And so we went all in on that idea. And ultimately, it's what moved me out of corporate. And I'll be real, I did enjoy that job. It was fun. I did 15 years. It was a good job, but what I'm doing now, I feel, is my purpose. And it's to support people that are looking to have those conversations that, in turn, people love to listen to. I think that podcasting changes the world, makes it a better place. Happens one listener at a time. Everything happens before that. Putting a guest and host together is just part of the administrative process. So let's make it easy so we can get to where we can really serve people.
You brought up a point that I want to ask you about, Shaun, and even Blythe sort of touched on it, is that it feels that being a podcaster now is a little bit entrepreneurial. There's like an entrepreneurial spirit to being a podcaster, at least modern day podcaster. Would you agree with that? That, the fact that you have to be nimble, the fact that it's evolving, and not in the sense that it's a business, but that spirit that you have to sort of grind it out to build something feels entrepreneurial to me.
I feel like, as any creative these days, the tools are there, but the support systems aren't necessarily there. So it's really dependent on, I mean, if you're in a band, or if you're a podcaster, or if you're a filmmaker, or whatever you're doing, more so than ever, you have to learn the ways to market. You have to learn the different avenues to make money, if possible. Hopefully you're chasing your passion, like I said before, but like once you've developed an audience, more so than ever, if you've developed that audience, you have a way to turn that into a way to support yourself and reach out. Ronald drops his Patreon when we were doing that. It's like, no,
Very
just say your
smart.
Patreon. Just actually say it. We'll put it up on screen. Because I think that at every opportunity, like if people like what you're doing, there are more and more ways for them to support you directly. And so I feel like if you are a creative at any level, you have to have that entrepreneurial thing. And people can see that as a negative because like, oh, now you can't just make the thing, you have to. But before, not as many people had the opportunity to make the thing they wanted to make because they had to wait for a gatekeeper to tell them, yes, it's you, and we're going to support you, we're going to pay. And now, if you're willing to take on those other skill sets, which are challenging, so none of this is easy, but the tools are available to you, and the knowledge base is available to you. I'm sure most everyone goes to YouTube to figure out almost anything these days. And if you want to find out how to do something, the information is there. So, but everyone can do it. So you really have to be someone that's out there and really willing to do those things. It's not easy. None of this is easy. Building a company isn't easy. Building a podcast is not easy. Making a film is definitely not easy. But it can be extremely rewarding, especially when there's monetary value. There's also the value of connecting with another person. And more so than ever, if you have something to say, you can connect with other people, and I think that's an amazing thing that can happen. So, yes, I think artists and podcasters need to embrace being entrepreneurial and forging their own destiny, if you will.
Alban, I want to see if we can get some data from you, some surprising data, right? Because you have access to the back ends of hundreds of thousands of podcasts, and I'm curious, what is maybe a data point that we may be surprised to hear in terms of what you're seeing on Buzzsprout?
One of the pieces of data that is the most depressing for podcasters, but also at the same time can be comforting, is that the average podcast in the first 7 days is getting about 32 downloads an episode. And so everybody is thinking in their mind, I'm putting my heart into this creative project. It reaches 32 people. It matters to me because the subject matter matters to me. And they feel like they failed, and yet they find out, I'm getting 200 downloads. I'm well above average. So I think that's one that's often surprising. And the reason it matters is because with radio, you have to get approval to get on the radio. There's only so many slots. On YouTube, the algorithm has to like you so that it will promote you to everybody who's trying to watch on YouTube. With podcasting, it's a direct connection. Like technically, it is direct from Buzzsprout, which you upload it to, directly to somebody's phone. And because it's direct, you actually get access to the audience. So we have tons of podcasters somebody who lost their child to a congenital heart defect says, I'm going to do a show for the next mom who loses a child to the same thing. And when she gets 50 downloads, it's like a 50-person support group, and it matters. And there are thousands and thousands of these stories of people who found something that is deeply important to them that yet does not align even with the monetary aspects of this is not commercially viable. It may not even be big enough to get written up on blogs and win awards, but it's big enough that 30, 50 people will listen every week and say, this is one of the most valuable things I listen to. And I think to me, that is probably the most beautiful thing about podcasting and this medium that you've portrayed so well.
Yeah, I often tell people, like, think about the people in this room, right? So you may see this number, what is it, a couple dozen people in your download platform and think, oh gosh, I only have 48 people who listened. But imagine standing on the stage with a microphone and having the attention of everyone in this room. That's pretty powerful. Like, don't underestimate that. Alex, okay, I want to talk about, is this right? Podmatch has paid over $1 million back to podcasters through your platform. Again, we talked a lot about monetization in this. People are just trying to make some of their money back or even support their lifestyle. How are you managing to do that on Podmatch?
Yeah,
Help
actually,
people do that.
today we broke $1.25 million back, which I'm really happy about.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. So when we got about 2 years into Podmatch, and I started looking at data because I should have been doing that from day one, but I wasn't. And so I started looking and realizing, oh, podcasters are leaving. So I told Letisha, I told Jesse, their co-founder, I'm like, I got to start talking to these people. So I got on calls with as many, during the offboarding, they'd leave and I'd say, hey, if you'll give Alex 5 minutes, get on a call with me. And we just get on a Zoom call and ask them. And they're like, oh, well, it's just, I'm quitting my podcast. I'm not quitting Podmatch. And at first I just accepted that as an answer. I was like, oh, okay, well, sorry. And then I was like, wait a minute, but why are you quitting podcasting? Then you're see, you're passionate. And I heard a lot of things, but the majority of people kept on saying, oh, well, it's an expense I can't really carry anymore. My partner doesn't approve of it. And so I started digging into like, okay, well, how much money are you spending? And so we started like figuring it out and realizing there's a handful of tools you need to podcast. So there are some things that you have to have. And that's where we launched what's called our Pod Value Initiative, where we pay podcasters just for the act of podcasting. Now, it's the ones that are on Podmatch using it. And I like to make sure I mention this. No one gets rich by it, but the goal is it offsets your production cost. So if you are someone who has like that very purposeful podcast, instead of being like, oh, this is costing me $80 a month, now it's costing you $0 a month. That way you can continue creating as long as you're passionate about it and feel that you're supposed to, feel like it's really impacting somebody's life without saying, oh, it's hurting my budget every month and I'm trying to tighten up on that. You no longer have to say that anymore. And so again, like it's never gonna get anyone rich and I'm okay with that. But if we can offset that production cost where you're at zero and anything you make on top of that is a bonus so you can continue to be that passionate creator, I'm all in. And that was the reason we launched that. It's what I'm most excited about that we're doing right now.
That's amazing. You mentioned something about, there's a word for it. Is it pod fade? Where so many people start the podcast and then they just fade off. Shaun, I'm wondering if you can speak to that, because when I see these faces in this documentary, I think, gosh, they're such champions, they're warriors, because I know how much they have pushed through just to stay in the game and to put an episode out every week. What's going on with pod fade these days? I think it's still true that people are starting and they drift off. What are the challenges there?
Well, I would say we talked about there's 1 million something odd podcasts, but I think the statistic is actually there's 300,000 active podcasts in any given moment, which means someone's publishing at least once a month. So that scales that back down a little bit, I think, to something that's still immense. I can't imagine 300,000 films coming out every year, if you can imagine. But I think it comes down to, and that's amazing that you guys are doing that. I didn't know about that. If you can eliminate the expense, like, would you still do it? You know, would you still want to talk to those people? I mean, I love talking to everyone that's here, and that's amazing that everyone came to this thing tonight. And as you spoke about before, if 60 people are listening to your podcast, is that it's not, 1 million or 400,000, but does it still have value? I think that, I think that it's worth making stuff. I think it's worth making stuff. Is art worth, one of the questions the movie, for me, asks, is art worth making? Is art worth making? Is stuff worth making, even if it's not something that's supporting you? Is it still have a value beyond the, capitalism brings us a lot of great stuff, but also it values things in a very specific way. And there are things beyond, I think, a monetary value that have value. And I think one of the great things about podcasting, I play in a band. Like, there are millions of bands. Like, is it worth making music? Is it worth I think I talked to someone who's a poet. How many poets make money? I mean, is it a medium that really makes any money for anyone, really? But there are still people making poetry. Poetry is worth making, even if it's not selling a book or selling something. There's something beyond a monetary value. And that's the one thing I think in the film at the end, there's a line that Ronald says at the end. He's like, there was a point in time where I thought that this would make me be able to pay my bills. And now that I know that's not true, do I still want to make the best thing possible? And the answer continues to be yes. Because if you can connect with another human being, as you spoke about, the mother that had a child die from congenital heart disease, and they're able to support 20 mothers or 20 family members that can feel like they're not alone. How do you put a monetary value on that? Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important. I think that's what the power of creation is, not just podcasting, but in podcasting is one of the few things where you can speak to other people. Man, if you're getting 200 downloads, that's amazing. That's 200 people. That's so incredible. So I don't know if I answered the correct directly, but I do think that there is a value in connecting with other people.
I'm going to just open this question up to everyone, because as you're talking and as I'm watching this, and I'm thinking back to Serial, and I'm thinking about the podcast that I listen to, the thought keeps coming in my head is like, where did we go wrong? Like, how did we get to the place where podcasting became like, okay, so now it's got to do something for you, or now you got to like.
It was Serial.
Oh,
it was Serial.
It was Serial.
It was Serial. It's when podcasting obviously had existed before Serial, but when you hit 1 million downloads, there's someone in an office going, 1 million. That means there's money there, and that's when the money comes in, and that's when it's like almost any medium, almost anything. I mean, there was I played in a punk rock band, so there was a point where like, oh, Green Day can make a lot of money because they can reach this many people. But that's not why that band started. They didn't start the band to say, oh, we're going to be touring and making millions of dollars. They just wanted to play music. And I think there's a point where, and as I said, capitalism does a lot of amazing things, but one thing it does is it breaks it down into monetary value. And yeah.
Blythe, I want to talk to you about being a podcaster, because not only you do a lot of amazing things, but you also are a podcaster. And your background is in sports radio before finding your way to logistics and podcasting. How do you personally push through the grind of producing a show? Because I think when I talk about Podfade, it's the fact that you have to record. You have to have a script. You have to be organized. You're recording. There's editing involved. You got to listen. There are a lot to make it happen. And you have done this. How have you pushed through to continue going back into the production wheel over and over and over again?
I'm currently in production hell right now. So I don't know that it ever truly ends. I think one thing that I do miss about radio is having a team. Having the producer, having the editor, having co-hosts to kind of, feed off of each other. And, for, I guess, the history of my podcasting careers, I've been mostly solo and interviewing one person at a time. And those conversations are so powerful to me. But I do feel this urge and being pulled into a new direction where I want to try different things within podcasting. I want to try to incorporate a little bit more video. I want to try to incorporate a little bit more storytelling, because I think for a while, especially over the last few years, it's been all about quantity. And now I think with, AI and being infused into every piece of content, that quality has come surging back. And that's where I just feel more drawn to, where, I was putting out 3 episodes a week, and that was killing me. And now I've kind of calmed down a little bit, where we're going to put out 1 really good episode a week, and it's still a struggle. I find, publishing many episodes was almost easier, but now that it comes down to 1 really good show, I honestly find it a lot harder to deal with. Maybe the talking head interviews is, I'm like, maybe I should just go back to that, because I find it very easy to talk to people and get smart comments out of them and learn something from them. But when it's you trying to make it yourself, I think you're almost overly critical of yourself. So it's a fine line to walk. I make money off of my show. I'm very blessed to say that. But I feel pulled in a lot of different directions, and I don't know that. I don't know that I'll ever truly figure it out. I think it's just a path of just putting one step in front of the other.
Oh, that's good. You touched on something I want everyone to comment on, and after we answer this question, we'll open it up for questions to the audience. We got to talk about AI and how AI is impacting, or, let's just ask the question. Okay, so first, you, my friend, have said that AI can't replace a podcaster's originality and voice. So how do you think independent podcasters should be thinking about AI right now?
Yeah, it's a tool that we all need to decide how we're going to use it, I think is important. And to me, it's great on the administrative side of things. So when I'm using AI, it helps with everything other than me using my voice. And so I'm still a podcaster myself today, but it's always me, and there's no AI edits in it or anything like that. It's 100% me. I found that resonates with my audience very well. There's a lot of people jumping into the podcasting medium, or any creative medium at this point, and they're realizing AI can do all of this now, so I don't need to do it, so I can focus on making money, and I'll let AI do the work. And these are the people that pod fade really quick. They disappear really fast because it just doesn't connect, and everyone's like, I don't get it. It's got all the right stuff. It's just missing that human element, because that's what we all engage with. That's what we connect with, right? Like, you ever talk to a robot? I don't think any of us have done that yet, but at some point it'll happen, but you're gonna be like, there's something missing here, right? It's not human to human. And I think that's where we as podcasters have drawn the line as an industry right now, is like, hey, our voice is what we truly own. This is our real IP. We'll automate everything else in the background, which just makes it a better experience for even listeners. But as far as what I'm sharing, what I'm saying, I'm gonna make sure that AI does not take that from me.
What do you think, Shaun, about AI entering the podcasting space?
I think there was a company that said they were going to make like 5,000 episodes a month or something like that using the AI. No one wants to listen to it.
Inception point AI.
It's like no one wants to listen to that. I think there's transcribing and clipping. I mean, clipping's such a big thing. I mean, I've utilized, if anyone is familiar, Opus Clip, which is an amazing tool to help clip and get sections of your podcast out there. But the thing it's clipping has to be a person. Like it's like having someone an assistant that's helping you. I think what you spoke about just now is like that human element needs to be there. No one cares if there's a podcast, with 2 hosts that are AI generated. People are just never going to connect with them, because people need to connect with other people. Now, it can be a useful tool. I mean, I used it in transcribing and doing different smaller elements like you said, in the background, even with the film. But there's no way an AI editor could ever do what was put together here. Or what I work also as an AV producer for a podcast, and I'm an editor as well. And there's AI editing, but it can't do the things that I'm doing. Is connecting, like, the vibe of a person from one moment to moment. Because most AI right now doesn't even hear the tone of someone's voice. All it can do is transcribe something, and is doing it strictly by text. So it doesn't understand the emotion of what someone's doing, or the breath before they speak. There's these small intricacies that I think that are human. And because you want to make something feel natural. I think the word natural, even though something's edited, it should still feel like it's natural. And I think as long as it's used as a tool, just like, I'm editing on a computer. A computer is not a natural thing. They used to cut tape, like that. But it's just a tool to enhance and give the ability to the human expression to be able to be translated to another human being. So I think I agree completely with you that in the background, useful tool, in trying to get things out there, a useful tool, but as the content still needs to come from a person.
Blythe, it sounds like you found a way to make things faster and move smoother with AI.
Yes and no. I would say that I was very much an early adopter of everything AI, because I used to be the person who would hand transcribe my social media clips that would go out, where I would hit play on a clip and transcribe it and then pause and play and pause, and you'd have to do this repetitive process over and over again. So when a tool like Opus Clips comes out, or auto transcribing, those have been lifesavers. And I will admit, like, I have over indexed on using AI. And it almost felt as if, there's a period of my podcasting where I outsourced too much, where I was just worried about, okay, that episode's done, we're focused on the next one. And I didn't give that episode time to breathe and time to really help other people, help the audience connect with it to the point where they're gonna hit play. And now I feel like I have reeled it in to a point where it's finding where the balance is of where AI fits in without losing your editorial voice. Because having your voice, especially in this era where everyone can make a show, even a robot can make a show out of random sources on the internet, where we as podcasters have to challenge ourselves to raise the bar and continuously raise the bar, because the machines are going to try to play catch up with us. And so we have to continuously see this tech and be the creative mind that can continuously make better content. And that's, it's the hardest thing and the easiest thing to say, but it's going to be, I think, challenging for a lot of folks to adapt. But I think that's what's so exciting about the modern era that we find ourselves in, is that a lot of podcasters can look at this and feel defeated. I look at it and see it as a challenge in order to make myself get better. And I hope other podcasters see it as the same as well.
And for Buzzsprout, how's AI, is changing or impacting what you guys do?
We always go back to, you do not want to replace the thing that you love. You want to figure out which part of this do you love and keep it. So I did not like transcribing podcasts, so we built in transcriptions. None of us really liked writing titles and show notes, so we built something that would suggest those for you. But this is the same problem people run into when they hire things out. Then you go, okay, well, I don't love editing, I'll hire that out. I don't really need to be the host anymore, I'll hire that out. I don't really want to do all the prep work anymore and put together the outline, they hire it out. And they realize all they've become is a manager of people, and in the future, these will be people who become managers just of robots, and they have no more of the creative piece that they loved to begin with. And so we always go back to, what do you really enjoy? Why did you get into this? And do not give that part away. Give away the administrative tasks, give away the bookkeeping, give away the stuff that you don't like, but make sure you're holding on to the thing that brought you into podcasting or any kind of art form to begin with.
That's good. Okay, I actually have one last question, and I'm just gonna ask it to you, Shaun. And that is, if podcasting disappeared tomorrow, what would the world lose?
You'd lose the human connection and voices of 1.5 million, 2 million people, and all the people that they connected with. I think that it's, as a medium, is incredibly valuable. It's something that, I not only did I make the documentary, I actually work in podcasting now as a result of the movie. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, I was just someone who was a listener, someone who was found this medium to be so incredibly immersive and really a companion in a lot of my time, and all these voices in my head that I get to connect with these people. I know it's a parasocial side, that word is out there, but it really is a way to connect with another person. and I think you would lose an immense amount of connection. Radio is still there. Radio, like I mentioned earlier, is a one-to-many. But podcasting, you choose to click play, and you choose the podcast. And I think that's there's something inherent. I don't think it's going away, to be honest with you. And it's one of the things that's cool about the internet, that it created this, like as Adam Curry and Dave Weiner figured out. Here's this interconnected thing that connects all of us. How can we use that to have another person connect with another person?
Yeah, stop. All right, that concludes our panel, but let's get some questions from the audience. You can raise your hand if you have a question for anyone up here, and Cersei will find you.
All right, thank you for coming out. First, I appreciate y'all for having this here in WJCT. So my question is actually for Shaun. We have some filmmakers and content creators here in the audience today. It's 7 years that took, right, to make this. Is that right? 7 years. So what advice would you give to someone who is still probably trying to finish their project, whether it's a feature film or short film or, like content? What advice would you give to someone to just keep maintaining, to keep going? It took you 7 years. Sometimes it took people like 3 years, 5 years. What advice would you give to that person to, keep going and finishing the project?
I mean, at its simplest, it's don't stop. I mean, someone asked, how does a film get made? It's like, because someone made it and they didn't stop making it. And with any creative project, there's always going to be obstacles. There's always, and especially with film, I don't know, and other mediums, film, one of the great things about podcasts is it can be relatively inexpensive to do it. Unfortunately, with films, most films, and there are exceptions to this rule, but most films cost tens to hundreds to millions of dollars. And you really have to keep doing it and ask yourself, when you start, why did you start it? And do you still feel that same way? I had when I was several years into the movie, the funds were gone and COVID had hit, and I was having to work a lot more at my other job, and there was no more time for the movie because I was making less money, and I was speaking to a friend. His name's Dallas Taylor. He runs a podcast called 20,000 Hertz, which I highly recommend listening to. He said, you don't have to do this. You can stop. You don't owe anyone anything. And kind of I did because the company gave us money. But like, no one's gonna put you in jail. Like you can stop if it's being that detrimental to your life. And I remember it was at a low point, and I was driving home somewhere, and I just remember I was like, what does that look like? What does it look like if I stop? All those people that I sent out an email, I'm gonna stop. And I was like, F that, I have to finish this thing. Like, there's just no way I was not going to finish the movie. And to the detriment of some financially and some relationships in my life. And, it's really a commitment. But you can stop. And if it's going to be a detriment to you, you can stop. But do you really feel like that thing needs to be out there? And for one reason or another, I felt like I couldn't let the people down that had trusted me with money and their stories. And at that point, I dug into that deep pile of grit that I've tapped into that seems to be never ending. I think that you have to, if you're at a point where you started something, and do you feel like you can finish it? Because at the end of that, there may not be a stage, there may not be a screen, may not be any money. And is it the thing that you're trying to make? Is it how important is it to? Why did you start it? And I think with this film, I had a very different place when I started it. It felt like the movie wanted to be made. Someone suggested, the film idea came into play. Within 3 months, I was meeting with my executive producer and met with the people at many of these podcast companies and pitched them the idea. And then within 4 months, we're filming with Radiotopia and Roman Mars. And I was like, this film wants to be made. And then at some point it didn't. And I had to remember that. So, like I said, go back to that point when you started it. Why did you start it? Why did you care about it? Why did you do this to begin with? And evaluate. I think that you should finish what you start. But on the other side of that, there's some cost. And sometimes you gotta know when to walk away. So, I don't know if that helped. But with this film, I'm so glad that I finished it. I may never make any money from this movie. I mean, the film should be coming out here pretty soon, but the cost of the movie and the cost before I make any money is very high. And there's a very strong chance this movie never makes any money. Now, if you ask me, was it worth making? 100%. The sheer amount of podcasters and people that have come up to me and say, I feel seen. Through Ronald's story, I feel, and the people have told me, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about making your podcast. I feel like it was worth making this film. I hope you guys do too. It was worth it. I may never make any money off this film, and it costs money to go and do screenings and continue to promote the film. And I feel very strongly that that I am so glad that I finished it. It's something that will live in the zeitgeist, I hope, and will live with certain people who have seen it. I hope people here tonight have seen it and you were able to take something away from it. And that has value beyond the monetary value. And I hope that if you're made something and you care about it, that you finish it.
There you go. Okay. Got it. Okay, so for somebody who has they're clear on the dream in their heart and what they want to launch, and they have people they want to talk to, and all of that, but they don't know where to start with the technology, and they don't really have a budget. What are bullet points that you would give them for advice of get on this platform, use this to edit? These are the bare minimum just to get it launched and moving.
I would recommend you start as easily as possible. Get a cheap microphone, get a recorder, and start with just audio and just start making it. You can find any number of tutorials, a lot that Buzzsprout has made that we put online, that will tell you which buttons to click. But the real piece is getting comfortable with hearing the sound of your own voice when you're doing the edit. It's putting yourself out there knowing that half the people who listen to it, it may not resonate, and it just feels bad when you don't get the results immediately that you're hoping for. So I would say start quickly, get some podcasts out there, get some cool conversations, and it always turns out better than you think. The first few hurt. I mean, they hurt for me. And after a few, you start to just really love it. And when you start getting the positive feedback back, it's an incredible feeling.
I would say, you have some resources here tonight on stage, better, the Jacksonville Podcasters United, and you go and you talk to other podcasters, use them as a resource. They're going to tell you what to use, what not to use, what resources are going to be the best for you, and reach out to other podcasters. More than almost any other group, I found that podcasters really want to share their knowledge with other podcasters, and they want to help you get onto the track. So, this night, go and there's a booth out there for the Jacksonville Podcasters United. I would get their pamphlet, sign up, code to one of their events, and meet other podcasters that have gone through the same journey you may be going through, and use them as a resource. Use other podcasters as a resource.
I will just add on to that the fear of perfection and the fear of equipment is very real. You think you need all the best equipment, you think the episode needs to sound perfect, when in reality, you're only going to get better the more you do it. I don't know if any of y'all are, maybe not any of y'all are Tom Brady fans, but if you've ever seen him, his draft photo, he looks like this scrawny guy who's never done a push-up in his life. But fast forward, 2 decades later, he's got 6 Super Bowl rings. And he didn't get there by not practicing. And so you have to treat the craft as a practice, and that you have to consistently find ways to get better. So be comfortable listening to yourself. It's going to be really hard to do that, but be comfortable listening to yourself. Study other shows, see what you like about those shows, and then pull aspects of what you like about those shows into yours. But don't think you have to have it all figured out on day one, because you won't.
And then real quick, I'll add to it. You said bullet points, so I'm going to give you just a quick bullet point. Well, it's not really quick, but here we go. Get a microphone. Sign up for Podcastle. It's a very easy, user-friendly editing platform. Record in Podcastle. Edit in Podcastle. Export it. Go to Buzzsprout. Upload it. Sign up for the plan that does your show notes and your titles with Buzzsprout. It will give you your description, it will give you your title, and publish. That's all you have to do. Did I say write a script? You need to write a script somewhere in there. Okay.
She's already on Podmatch.
Oh, great. And Podmatch for your guest. Yeah. Sorry, I'm
yes, not a host. Yes.
So a category of podcasting that was not covered are the business-to-business promotional model. And I'm from Atlanta. There's a network of studios for rent to come with a producer, Business Radio X, where people of a profession interview other people in related professions in order to promote their business. The videos go on the network website, but they also put the videos on the profession. So it might be an irrigation contractor who interviews the lawn guy and the drip guy and all the others. So it really helps. Each one is able to showcase their knowledge of the profession and its promotion. So they're not looking to make money directly from the podcast, but by showcasing what they can do. Are there any such studios in this area?
There are some in town. What is the name of the Biz Bros studio?
Podcast Studio Suites.
WJCT Public Media.
I know.
Take my card.
Also, WJCT has fantastic studios that you can rent as well. And I know that there are a couple of others in town as well, but I think that those options, most of those options are great if you really want to impress a guest. It feels like it's almost like maybe a step above somebody that's just wanting to get started. If you're just wanting to get started, get comfortable recording in the most comfortable place you have.
All right, to the director, do you not plan to put this film in Tribeca, the film festival?
Do you plan to put this in to submit it to Tribeca Film?
Oh, we've already gone through our film festival run already. We the timing of when the film was completed and when we have some people like Tribeca. I wish. The timing didn't work out when the film was done versus when Tribeca was doing their. We actually screened the film at NYU during Tribeca last year, and I was invited to go to Tribeca as well and got to be around. And a lot of the Davey, obviously, who's in the film, is they're actually Tribeca starts this week. So our film will be coming out probably in the next month or two. It will be available, be distributed widely. So we've actually kind of completed that aspect part of the film, but I appreciate that. But yes, Tribeca was definitely on our list as a place that we wanted to have the film play at. But the timing and the way things kind of worked out didn't work out for us in that regard. But definitely had the support of the Tribeca audio behind us, which was very helpful.
So my question was, it was two-part. Doesn't the presence or fact it can be monetized on social media, doesn't it help soften the blow as it relates to your finance or the financial responsibilities? Because there are a lot of people who are making a lot of money on social media. They've actually, they do both. They're on podcast platforms, and they're also on other platforms, video platforms. They're making a lot of money at it. So can you kind of just touch on that? Is it a benefit or?
I feel like social media as a discovery model is very helpful, and so much with clipping is happening these days, and there are some opportunities to monetize on some of the clips from your podcast, so that's another avenue. But I think the biggest opportunity for most podcasters is going to be advertising, and that comes from building an audience. So I feel like the social media side is a way to build that audience, and once you build up a certain size audience, you have the opportunity to potentially monetize through, like more so than ever. If you have an audience, if you have 5,000, 10,000 people a week listening to your podcast, you're going to be able to make some money off that podcast. The opportunities are there. But I feel like social media is a way to get people to get to the podcast more so than a direct way of making money. Now, there are exceptions to all that. There are people who have figured out ways to use social media and be influencers and use that as an opportunity. But I think for most podcasters, social media is a way to get people to almost a funnel point, to get them to listen to their podcast. And if they can build that audience, then they can possibly monetize on the audience they have.
One last question.
Hi, congratulations, Mr. Colon. Sorry, I'm getting a respiratory infection. Congratulations on the success of your film. I know I'm a local filmmaker, and I'm sure the great thing about being a filmmaker is planning for the next one. After the success of this film, what is your next project?
Oh man, the question.
We want you to get to work again.
No,
back to work.
Geez. To be honest with you, I don't have. I have a short that I would like to make, and I would like to get into more narrative type things. I don't know if I'll make another documentary. This is my second, and the first one took 5 years. This one took about 7 years, and the sheer amount of having such a heavy thing weighing on me for multiple years it's lovely that the film is done, and it's lovely to get to show the film to people and to have it potentially make some money in the future. But I think I got into documentaries because it was extraordinarily inexpensive to start one. The bar to start a documentary is pretty low. If you can find someone that you can interview and you have a way to film it with cameras and the equipment, relatively inexpensive. Anyone can start a documentary. Finishing a documentary is infinitely difficult. This film is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is inexpensive for a film. And raising the money, applying for grants, going through the process of people backing out because things take time was emotionally very draining. I missed many opportunities, I think, because I was working on this film and I refused, like as I said earlier, to not finish it. I think my next thing, and to be honest with you, right now I'm in the process of marketing the film, working on getting it out there, doing these screenings. We've done multiple screenings since I would say the film came out about a year ago at a film festival. And since that time, I've done multiple different screenings across the country. And each one of those screenings took a tremendous amount of effort. This one was great because I didn't have to do much.
Not this one.
Not this one. This one was awesome. I didn't have to do anything but show up. It's awesome. But I do have a first draft script for a short that I would like to film at some time in the near future. So I think for me, my future is looking at doing some short films that don't require a 10-year commitment. However, that being said, I still want to continue making things. One of the great benefits of making this film is now, I don't know if there's any anime fans in the audience out here, but I ended up getting a position working in podcast video and editing for a podcast. I do the Crunchyroll, the Anime Effect podcast, which has turned into a great opportunity. I'm getting a chance to be creative without it fully being all on me, which is tremendous. And it's paying my bills. You know, I may never make any money from this movie, but I may end up with a career editing different podcasts and working with a team, which is pretty amazing. But I play music, and one of the things that I had to do for several years was almost stop making music, because I couldn't put the time and effort into doing that. I had to put the time and effort to finishing this film, because I felt like it needed to be done. So right now, I'm really kind of exploring what creative things that I want to do that are outside of these two things. I think for the last almost 15 years, I've been working consistently on a documentary, and I'm looking forward to the time to not be making a documentary. As much as I've loved it, and as much as I've been in rooms that I never thought I would be in. I've been flown to different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and that's been amazing. My first documentary, it's called A Fat Wreck. It's about this punk rock record label. This year is a 10-year anniversary. There's tremendous interest still in the film. I'm doing screenings for that. I'm actually doing a new cut of that film. So who knows? You know, there may be another cut of Age of Audio in the next 10 years that really updates with what's happened since. So, I don't know, that was a long-winded answer, but I will be making something. It will not be another documentary in the short term, for me.
Okay, it is 8:59. We did great on time, but I want to take a second, Shaun, to just maybe encourage you and let you know that your love for making things is infectious, and your determination and grit to stay committed to making things that inspire other people who want to make things is admirable. And thank you for the blood, sweat, and tears, and staying committed and staying authentic to the art, right? Staying committed to the art. You're not swayed by the big flashy things. You're still committed to the core of podcasting, and that for me has been so refreshing. So, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you, Shaun, for coming to Jacksonville. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you all for laughing. I loved it when I was in the back watching you guys laugh at some parts. That makes me so happy. There's so many funny parts of this movie, and I hope you guys liked my Steve Jobs.
Yes, I was like, I think that's Shaun. Thank you, Alban, Blythe, Alex, for their insights. All right, have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Debbie.
Oh,
Thank you so much.